Hello everyone, welcome to our Stellar workshop. My name is Cihangir Tezcan. I'm the head of Department of Cybersecurity at Informatics Institute at Middle East Technical University. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our two speakers today who are going to talk to us about Stellar basics and how it is used in financial applications to solve real-world problems. Our first speaker, Anke Lu, is a community and events manager at the Stellar Development Foundation. Anke contributes to the broader Stellar ecosystem by planning and coordinating events. Thank you for joining us today. And our second speaker, Cem Arcan, is an enterprise account manager also at Stellar Development Foundation. There, Cem works with enterprises of all sizes to support them to grow their businesses while increasing the network activity. So it's a pleasure to have both of you today with us. First, Anke is going to talk about Stellar basics, and then Cem is going to talk about more specific topics. And at the end, we can have questions from the audience. Anke, the screen is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So thank you everyone for joining this session. My name is Anke, and Cem and I will be hosting this session with you. Since I think the professor already did such a wonderful introduction, would you just briefly introduce yourself, Cem?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cem. I'm originally from Istanbul, but I live in Canada. I work with ecosystem companies, and thanks for having us here.
Perfect. Thank you, Cem. So we work at the Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF for short, and which is the nonprofit organization founded in 2014 to support the development and growth of the open source Stellar network. So the foundation that we work for helps maintain Stellar's code base, supports the technical and business communities around Stellar, and is a speaking partner to regulators and institutions. So our mission really is to create equitable access for the financial system. So quickly, the agenda. So first, I'll explain what Stellar is and how it works. There will be some room for a few questions about the content I covered. And then Cem will talk about who is Stellar for and what it's used for. And we'll go into some of the real life examples of how Stellar is being used on Stellar, how Stellar is being used today. And we'll explain how some specific applications have built on Stellar. So, advancements in technology have made it so that information can be shared instantly with anyone in the world, regardless where it came from. Unfortunately, the same thing isn't true for money and how money works today. Blockchain technology is challenging us to think about money and value in a new way, presenting the opportunity to make it better, more effective, and more efficient. So in much the same way that the internet democratized access to information, blockchain can democratize access to the financial system. So it can make sending value around the world as easy as sending an email. So Stellar, which is the subject of today's talk, is a blockchain network designed to become the next global payment standard. It's intended to enhance rather than undermine or replace the existing financial system. So to understand how Stellar can set that global payment standard and make sending money as easy as sending an email, I want to start explaining what Stellar is, because while the average consumer might not need to know how this technology exactly works, all of you, business leaders and developers of tomorrow, may be able to leverage this technology. So at a high level, Stellar is a decentralized open network that connects the world's financial infrastructure. It's a global public blockchain that's built for interoperability and to further financial access and inclusion. It does that by helping to make money more fluid, thanks to the speed and scale of the Stellar blockchain to transfer value. It helps to make markets more open, because when financial infrastructure is connected, you have a greater geographical and affordable access to markets. Ultimately, this empowers people because it gives them real ownership of the value in their possession. So how does Stellar manage to do all those things? To understand how Stellar connects financial systems so they can work together on a single platform, we're going to delve into the following 3 questions. How is value represented on Stellar? What's the technology behind Stellar? And oh, I guess they didn't show up. And how does value move on Stellar? So let's start with the first one. So Stellar allows anyone to create a redeemable, tradable representation of any asset in a few simple lines of code. Often, we call these digital assets tokens. So token issuance is the backbone of the Stellar network. It's how Stellar connects the world's currencies, and it's what Stellar was built for. So you can issue a token that represents anything from corn to gold to even an hour of your time as a tutor, for example. But tokens are most useful when tied to fiat currencies, such as dollars or yuan or euros or lira. So these fiat-backed tokens are issued by regulated financial institutions, money service businesses, or fintech companies called anchors. So anchors help create a world where the existing financial system is connected and interoperable with Stellar. They serve as the on and off ramps of the network. So an anchor connects Stellar to a local banking system and handles regulatory compliance by doing things like know your customer, KYC information, so users can make deposits and withdrawals. A user obtains a Stellar network asset by depositing traditional currency with an anchor using traditional rails, and they can then hold that asset in the Stellar wallet or app, use it to make payments or trade it with other assets on the network. So anchors maintain fiat reserves equivalent to the value of the issued tokens, so users can redeem them back to fiat at any time. When people hold the tokens, they can treat them just like traditional money because they know that they're exchangeable for traditional money at the end. All right, so this may seem unexceptional, right? Issuing electronic credits in the form of a bank account for local currencies is basically what most banks do thousands of times a day. But in a global system, this one-to-one promise of a token for a currency has important implications. For instance, no matter how a USD token, for example, moves through the economy, the underlying dollars never leave that bank account in the United States. So suppose someone loans their tokens to someone else, then uses them to buy a car. No bank has to settle the purchase or approve the loan. And furthermore, it doesn't matter if the seller of the car lives in Mexico or Singapore or anywhere, they can still hold the tokens and trade them however they please. The Stellar network makes money borderless. So here's my beautiful slide, and it goes to what I wanted to show before. So that I've just explained that assets like the US dollar are represented as tokens on the Stellar network. And so that anchors provide the on and off ramp for these tokens. But what is the Stellar network exactly? What is the technology that makes it all possible? So Stellar is a peer-to-peer network made out of nodes. What are nodes? Nodes, that's a weird word, right? Nodes are actually computers or servers that connect and communicate with one another to keep a common accounting ledger and to approve and ratify changes to it. See all those blue dots on the screen here? Those are all nodes on the Stellar network. So the network is open participation, which means that anyone can set up a node, and decentralized because nodes are run by independent individuals and organizations all over the globe. Nodes keep a common accounting ledger, which is stable, secure, and transparent. Stable because the network is spread over servers and computers all over the world. It doesn't rely on a central server, so it can be turned off. Secure because no one can change the numbers or manipulate the data to their liking. And transparent because everyone can see the ledger and trust that the information is correct. The ledger tracks ownership, what you own and what you do with what you own. So in essence, it's a public time-stamped series of immutable records of data that stores accounts and keeps track of their balances and offers. So every entry that persists on the ledger is tied to a particular account. Accounts are the central data structure in Stellar and are saved on the global ledger. They hold balances, they sign transactions, and they issue assets. So in fact, all entries that persist on the ledger are owned by a particular account. Account access is controlled by public and private key cryptography. So every Stellar account has a public key, which always starts with a G, and a secret key, which always starts with an S. The public key is safe to share. Other people needed to identify your account and verify that you authorized a transaction. Kind of like how people need your email address in order to send you emails. Your secret key, however, is private information that proves you own your account. It's like the password to your email address. You use your secret key to sign transactions, which you submit to the network to change the state of the ledger. For example, when you want to make a payment, you submit a transaction that moves part of the balance from your account to someone else's account. Every 3 to 5 seconds, the nodes on the network combine all the transactions submitted to them into a transaction set. And then they communicate with each other using a process called the Stellar Consensus Protocol to vote on the validity of that set. Not going into details since it's a complicated process, but basically they all come together, they vote on whether a transaction is valid or not. Let's say, for example, if I only have $20 in my account and I want to send you $50, obviously that transaction will not go through because they will check how much balance I have in my account, and so it will not go through. That's the validity, whether something looks valid or not. And once these nodes ratify a transaction set, so a set of all transactions combined, it's applied to and changes the state of the ledger. So let's quickly walk through that process so you have an idea of how this works. So it starts with the ledger N. Stellar users, wherever they are in the world, submit transactions to send and exchange all kinds of assets on the network. They can then move funds anywhere in the world and convert currencies along the way, thanks to built-in order books, which we'll go over in a minute. These transactions are then bundled into sets, confirmed by all the validating nodes, and applied to the ledger, at which point they're final and irreversible, and the whole process starts over. So these are all the kinds of assets on the net. There are all kinds of assets on the network, and they work together to create a global financial infrastructure. That's because Stellar lets you do more than just send assets across the network. It also makes it easy to convert one currency to another. How does value move on Stellar? Value on Stellar can be moved in 3 ways. The simplest and most common way to move value is to make a payment. I send USD, you receive USD. So instead of sending value to another user, I can also trade an asset I hold for another asset on the network. I sell USD for Euro. Finally, I can combine the two into a path payment, which allows me to send one currency and have the recipient receive another. I send USD, you receive Euros. So trades and path payments are possible because Stellar has a built-in decentralized exchange. In addition to tracking balances, as if you ever heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum, they do this. Stellar also tracks and settles trades in a decentralized, ownerless way. So it has a common built-in order books called the Decentralized Exchange, or DEX for short. Every token on Stellar is exchangeable with every other token on the network, and the Stellar protocol itself connects buyers and sellers with each other. So users can submit their bids or asks to the public network via a single simple operation, and every ledger close compatible trades were automatically resolved without the use of intermediaries. The DEX, or Decentralized Exchange, facilitates universal currency conversion, which is not only great for traders, it's also great for cross-border, cross-currency transactions called path payments. So a path payment allows a user to send one currency and have the recipient receive another, which is a powerful innovation for international payments. For example, an American company can pay an invoice in Mexico by spending dollar tokens, while the vendor only receives peso tokens. Neither side incurs exchange risk or delays, and both sides get only the currency they want. So Stellar automatically finds the best conversion rate via the DEX, and yeah, path payments are the fulfillment of Stellar's interoperability promise. Value flows seamlessly from account to account in whatever form is most useful. And that functionality leads right into the final question, which Jem is going to go over very soon. But first, I have, does anyone have any questions of what I talked about? Because I don't want to go like tell for a long time and then have questions that were unanswered. So feel free to put it in the chat too if you have any questions about what I just covered. Otherwise, we can continue.
Yes, if you have any questions, now I allowed you to unmute yourself, so you can ask using your microphone, or you can write it on the chat screen.
No, maybe I just explained really well. That's possible. Well, anyway, there will be
exactly.
there will be plenty of room to ask questions at the end as well. So, what about forward transactions? I'm not sure what you mean by forward necessarily. Could you unmute yourself and explain?
I mean, hi, it's me. I asked this question. The agreement might be that the transaction will take place after 3 months, for example, and there will be deal how to pay, at which rate to pay, such things.
Oh, you mean about, you think about smart contracts?
Yeah.
Or
yes.
Okay, yeah. So Stellar does not have native smart contracts built in, but we do have I think if you go to tss.stellar.org, that's where all the information about smart contracts and upcoming things are at, where it's at. So if you go to that link, that's where all that information will be. I do know we have, I think, something called sponsored reserves, where I will have to look into exactly like later on how this works. But then you can also, maybe Jem knows more about that, but I can definitely look that up and let you more about that later. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send a link when Jem's talking.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right, so, here, we have a specific. So we don't have a Bitcoin currency that belongs to our foundation, but there is a native currency of Stellar. It's called the Lumen, or XLM, and you might have heard of it. Basically, like Lumens for the Stellar network serve a utility purpose. You have to have, for example, a minimum balance on your account, and there is a very, very small transaction fee in XLM, in our Lumens, for each transaction you submit to the network. It's very, very, very small. It's many fractions of a cent, but it allows people. It allows for deterring bad actors spamming the network. So there's a minimum fee needed to deter bad actors, but still run a good flow of valid transactions and a good transaction. So hope that, and if you go to stellar.org and there is an intro to Stellar, there's also a Lumen section, which I will add this link into the chat. And then you can read more about it there. But I'm not specifically going to cover Lumens, because it's for us, for Stellar, it's a utility token. And it's also a token, actually, like XLM also facilitates path payments, like facilitates as an intermediate currency, so to speak. So one currency, if they're not great connected with XLM, if they're both on the network, XLM can facilitate that, make that transaction better, flow better. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. All right. Yeah, and I'll post like links of all your questions so you have better, if you can read more into it. All right, if that's it, Jem will explain who uses all of these features I just talked about and what they're used for. So I'll give the floor to Jem.
Thank you, Anke. So what is Stellar for? Like I can mention, Stellar is an open and permissionless network. So really, anyone can build anything they can imagine on Stellar. But generally, it's used by companies offering financial products and services who take advantage of its features to build better solutions to real-world problems. But why companies build on Stellar? So Stellar has some serious advantages that make it a simple and cost-effective platform building financial products. For example, speed. Transactions settle in only 3 to 5 seconds. It costs only 1 cent for 100,000 transactions, and it has multiple fiat on and off access points. In addition to that, it's compliant. It has built-in compliance features, KYC and ML to be specific. And Stellar's open source developer resources provide comprehensive documentation, SDKs, and tutorials. It's also an open network, so no one owns it and anyone can access it for free. To see what that means, we'll take a look at 3 different use cases, starting with one of the biggest areas of focus for many companies building on Stellar, which is cross-border payments. So each year, over $500 billion of value is transferred cross-border through personal remittances. But in most cases, remittances are transfers of money from foreign workers or students to family or friends in their home country sent on a monthly basis. The typical transaction is around $200 to $300, and the average retail cost of these transactions are 7 to 8%. Sending costs can be as high as 15% when transferring money to people in developing economies. Today's financial infrastructure is outdated, operating on models unchanged for decades. At its best, it's slow, cumbersome, and there's so much fees. And it's worse, it leaves millions of people marginalized. And it's even worse when you picture connecting payment system across the borders and currencies. SWIFT allows banks to message each other, but to actually settle and reconcile payments, they often rely on correspondent banking relationships, passing money from bank to bank to bank, and each bank is its own time zone and own jurisdiction, so things are slow, complex, and costly. Plus, a lot of people don't have easy access to banks. Blockchain gives us the opportunity to build that different system, one that fosters equality, connection, and cooperation. Domestic payments rails are improving rapidly. I know most of the countries, even including Turkey, now implementing near instant and 24 settlement payment systems. But these near instant payment rails are not interconnected, which means they cannot interoperate. What I mean is a near instant local payment rail in Turkey, for example, is not compatible with a near instant payment rail in Canada. So there's no efficiency created from individual fast settlement system in cross-border transactions. And also just because it's near instant in both countries does not mean the outcome of that transaction will be instant. Settlement still takes time in legacy rails. Because Stellar makes it possible to represent the world's fiat currencies in the form of digital assets on one decentralized ledger where they can all interoperate freely. This means one currency can be converted to another easily with better rates than your local bank or going through shady FX offices. This also means that sender can send one currency and receiver can receive a different desired currency without losing any percentage on the conversion and without doing another step. This conversion can happen either directly if there's a liquid market, or could happen through path payments if there's not a liquid market between those two currencies. So users don't need a liquid market to be able to leverage the network for cross-border payments and utilize the auto-conversion feature. Now, dollars can interoperate with lira, which can interoperate with mobile money in Europe, which can work with remittance companies in Africa. The traditional financial system makes it hard for fintechs to enter new markets or expand remittance services to people who need them most, because intermediaries such as agents and correspondent banks cause slow settlement times and create additional operating costs. To cover these operational costs, remittance service providers charge fees or build costs into the FX transaction, thereby passing the cost along their customers, and the end result is remittance recipient receive less money. But Stellar changed that landscape. Today, the remittance service providers, digital money apps, growing fintech companies, and traditional banks can use Stellar to reduce the friction and cost usually associated with traditional money transmitter operators, correspondent banks, or financial payment rails. So as anchors take care of deposits, redemption, and compliance, businesses building on Stellar can focus on their customers' experience. So let's take a look at a real-world example of what Anchor is. So what we call anchors are partners that provide fiat on and off ramp, or you can think like acceptance and distribution in different geographies around the world. So whether your company becomes an anchor or uses an existing one, you'll still enjoy all the benefits of the Stellar network. And as you can see, we have quite a bit of anchors in Africa and North America and Latin America. So more specifically, by leveraging Stellar rails and on and off ramp points, users can be connected to anything from e-wallets to digital lenders to remittance services and many more. And this is not possible with the current traditional rails. Let's look at a real-life cross-border example. So two fintech companies, Tempo and Cowry, they both use Stellar to facilitate remittance payments from Europe to Nigeria. Tempo is a money transmitter based in Paris, France. They anchor a Euro token, they have a Euro stablecoin, and they serve European customers and corporations. Cowry is a Nigerian fintech company that builds and operates payment systems, and they anchor a Nigerian Naira, and they issue a Nigerian Naira stablecoin. So Tempo and Cowry use Stellar to send money from Europe to Nigeria and vice versa on behalf of users. The network handles the transfer of value in the background, but from a user's perspective, it looks just like a traditional remittance payment. When a user wants to remit funds from Europe to Nigeria, they go to Tempo's app, connect their bank account, or they can use their credit card, debit card, and they initiate a payment to send Naira to the recipient. The user transfers euros to Tempo, and in the background, Tempo issues EURT tokens on the Stellar network and converts them into NGNT tokens through a PAT payment operation. Cowry receives the NGNT token and deposits an equivalent amount of Nigerian Naira to the end recipient's bank account. And all this happens automatically and is fast, easy, and cost-effective. So Tempo and Cowry use Stellar to facilitate cross-border payments on behalf of users, but other fintech companies build apps like wallets that allow users to interact directly with Stellar network and send cross-border payments without an intermediary. So wallets are used for value and data transfer. Unlike physical wallets, where the asset or cash is stored inside the wallet, Stellar wallets don't store assets. Instead, they give users a way to access a Stellar account, to view the assets and data associated with that account, and to sign and submit transactions. Wallets also connect to anchors so that users can easily deposit and withdraw fiat currency to get on and off the network. A good example of a wallet is Uhuru. The Uhuru is a WhatsApp-based wallet that allows for sending intra-African payments. It also enables bill payments, cash in, cash out, merchant payments, and airtime payments. So they are growing in Africa region. As most of their target market already are using WhatsApp in their day-to-day life, they decided to build their app on WhatsApp. What this means is like their target markets have familiarity, so they choose to build it on WhatsApp. Let's look into another use case, which is saving and earning interest. So this is a chart that, I mean, we're all familiar with. We can see how some of the events affect the lira to US dollar spot FX rate. This obviously doesn't mean those events are causing the movements, but we can see how much it changed over time. And a common narrative is that US dollar is going up, but reality is lira is going down, and not just against developed country currencies such as euro or Canadian dollars, but we can also observe the similar price movement for pairs against Tanzanian shilling, Brazilian real, or South African rand. So how can you protect your wealth from inflation and FX loss? There are multiple ways, but I like to talk about 2 ways briefly. So first, you can convert your currency. You can convert your lira to a more stable currency in traditional ways, but you would incur FX and conversion fees. Plus, you'd have to take a less than optimal conversion rate due to spreads charged by intermediaries. Or you can use blockchain to save cost and speed. One way to protect your wealth is you can convert your asset into a stable coin. This can be easily done on the Stellar network with only a few clicks. Right now, we don't have a Turkish lira anchor, but when there's a Turkish lira anchor, users will be able to easily on and off ramp, then convert their lira token to a more stable fiat stablecoin such as USDC or EURT. But until then, users can on-ramp via their local exchange like Paribu or BTC Turk or a bunch of other ones, then convert these funds into USD stablecoin like USDC. Or you can also earn interest on these funds. Converting to a stablecoin is not the end of the things that you can do. Users can also earn interest on their stablecoin. These interests can range anywhere from 3 to 15%. And at first, you might be comparing that interest rate with the local interest rate that you get from your bank, Turkish bank, but you need to also consider how much of lira's value is going down while you're earning that high interest. So let's do a spotlight. Vibrant is a dollar saving tab for Latin Americans. This app started in launch in Argentina first, and it gives people in Argentina an inflation beating tool. So the easy to use platform lets Argentines buy and store digital assets back one-to-one with the US dollar. Stellar enables the easy and cost-effective conversion between currencies. As a disclaimer, this app is developed in-house, so this is SDF's app. And it uses USDC as the main currency. And this feature, by the way, can be offered in a both custodial and non-custodial fashion. Just to give some example, these are you can see some of the interest rates that you can get from different companies. And also you can earn interest on your XLR. Okay, let's move to the next use case. So investing without borders. So investing is fragmented and based on financial exclusion, I believe. And one reason for that is regulation, but the other reason is lack of access. So nowadays, there are multiple ways that people can invest in stocks, bonds, and commodities from anywhere in the world. But let's look into 2 methods that are very popular these days. One of them is payment for order flow. We might be familiar with that with the recent GameStop and Wall Street Bets craziness. And the other one is the tokenization. So on the payment for order flow structure, the brokerage firm receives a small payment, usually fractions of a penny per share, as compensation for directing the order to a particular market maker. Tokenizing equities can be thought of as tokenized derivatives that represent traditional securities, particularly shares in public firms traded on regulated exchanges such as Tesla, Apple, Facebook, or ETFs like S&P 500. But both concepts claims they are democratizing the access to financial markets, and both of them helps the end user in different ways. but only one gives power back to the people and work in a decentralized peer-to-peer way. So here we can see some examples of both, we can see Robinhood, well, simple on the PFOF side, and some crypto-related exchanges like FTX, Bittrex on the tokenization side. And let's look into another spotlight, Dstock. So Dstock is a fintech company that uses buy and sell offers on the Stellar Decentralized Exchange to allow users to obtain stocks. Its goal is to make investing accessible and affordable for people in emerging markets like Turkey, South Africa, Brazil, or Vietnam through a borderless digital interface for security tokens built on the Stellar network. These users require only a smartphone to access global financial markets, which, thanks to Stellar's infrastructure layer, makes the entire process not only more accessible, but also more efficient. This creates the opportunity for emerging markets to access financial products they never had access to before, which can improve the lives of million people while simultaneously creating exciting new business opportunities. So Dstock builds large parts of their APIs based on Stellar ecosystem protocols, and it allows users to securely trade assets on the blockchain under the safety of a European legal framework. So this is a very high-level overview of how it works. Dstock app sits in the middle, but there's a market maker who buys the securities and tokenizes these securities. Then after that, these securities are listed on the decentralized exchange, and the customer interacts with Dstock app, which in fact Dstock app facilitates the trade. So another way to look at this is a user A puts a buy offer, a user B puts a sell offer, blockchain matches this order, and this all happens through the decentralized exchange, built-in decentralized exchange. And that's all I have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
You.
Oh, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet.
Yeah, so you are going to, good.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for letting me speak. So, you know, you learned a bit about how Stellar works and how it can be used, how it's used by, you know, companies built today. But it's great now, but, you know, you might be wondering, how can I get involved? How can you get involved? How, if you want to learn more about Stellar or want to build your own project, how can I do that? So we have a Stellar global Discord that's run by community members all over the world. And one of the channels is there's a Stellar Turkey channel. They're very very engaged community members, like talk with each other every day. So and it's luckily like when this channel it's a very good channel, I believe. And so once you get engaged with the community, I highly recommend checking out Stellar Quest. Stellar Quest is a fun gamified way to learn more about Stellar. I'll show a little bit in a bit how this works, but basically, even if you don't know how to code, you can still learn how the tech of Stellar works on a deep level, but in a fun way, and it builds up. Even I have run through some of the challenges and I don't know how to code. So I highly recommend this to people. Also, once you learned a bit more about Stellar Quest and you want to make your own project, but you can participate in hackathons, various hackathons we sponsor, but if you just, there's very many blockchain hackathons and also just hackathons in general around the world happening virtually. You can join every day, really. Also, there is the Stellar Community Fund. The Stellar Community Fund is for seed, is for like when you have like a really good project and you want to get seed funding, you can apply for this fund and yeah, possibly like win the competition and get seed funding for your project to launch it into a business. So that's that for now. I would like to just quickly if we have a few minutes left, run through Stellar Quest so you have an idea of how that works. So this is Stellar Quest, and let me make this a bit bigger so you see what I mean. Yeah, so Stellar Quest, learn Stellar, win prizes. Interested in learning a bit about cryptocurrency without all the when moon hocus pocus. Just want to understand the tech? Welcome to Stellar Quest. Here you can win, learn about the technology that powers Stellar and win some awesome prizes along the way. These are badges you can win for any challenge you finish and you finish it well. You can automatically win a badge. There are currently 2 series with each 8 challenges. And the next series is likely going to be in April, series 3, and there will be some prizes involved. So the idea is if you finish series 1 and 2 and you feel like, oh, I would like to win some prizes, and if you're in, I guess, within a certain time frame, you're one of the first people who complete it, you can win some prizes, some excellent prizes. So let's just log in real quick to see how this works. So I'm just going to log in real quick. So you see how it works. It's very easy. You log in with Discord. If you have a Discord, if you don't have a Discord account, you should make one. And let me just close this so I have it a bit bigger. So basically, this is challenge 1. As I mentioned before, there are 8 challenges. This first challenge is relatively easy and allows you to create and fund a Stellar account. You will use our documentation, such as the developers. Oh, I need to move this. Developer documentation, such as here. Now, this is a lot to go through, but with Stellar Quest, it's very focused, so it's easy to go through. Then this is another link you can open. I'll just open this. And here is the Stellar laboratory, which you can test and submit transactions to the Stellar testnet. Stellar testnet, without any risk of losing any funds. There's a public network and a test network, but you can read more about that in the documentation. So basically, you can build a transaction, you can create an account. And that's, you can really experiment with blockchain technology without even knowing how to code. And Stellar Quest will run you through it. So that was that for me. I would highly encourage to go over to Stellar Quest. I'll put it in the chat real quick. And complete, let's start with series 1 and then make your way up. And then hopefully if you want to earn, get prizes or win prizes, you can participate in the latest challenge will air, I guess in this month. Is it today's April? Yeah, in this month. Perfect. So that was it for me. Oh, here. Then you can learn more on stellar.org. We have all our documentation here, all information, all events, everything can be found. And if you want to keep updated, you can follow us on Twitter on stellar.org. And so now we open it to any questions you may have for me and Jem. So feel free to ask questions.
Thank you very much for both of you for this wonderful presentation. I have a question, but I will give the first talk to the question to audience.
So there's a question by Ibrahim.
Yes. Yeah.
Should I answer?
Can we?
Anka?
Yes.
Yeah. So
you can ask.
I'll start with the last one. So if I understood correctly, orders in the order book were in XLM. So no. So when you issue an asset on the network, it automatically lists on the order book. So the order book does not consist with just XLM. The main pair is with XLM, but there are individual market makers are providing liquidity to specific pairs. For example, EUR-T to BRL stablecoin, there's a market. USDC has lots of pair with different assets. So the order book is not just an XLM. Let's look into I'll answer another question. Is the network similar to that Bitcoin's 51% attack? No, because Stellar is not a mineable tokens. Bitcoin is mined, and it needs some, I mean, I'm not the expert and I might be saying something wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is not that wrong. So to mine Bitcoin, you need some like energy power, you need some power. Stellar consensus protocol works in a different way. It's pre-issued assets like on the XLM side, so it doesn't happen like that. I'll answer another one. Scalability. Yeah, scalability is pretty good. Like Anke, correct me if I'm wrong, 1,000 transactions per second. And it includes operations. So scalability, we don't, yeah, scalability. Scalability compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum is way more scalable.
Yes, I believe like Bitcoin takes about an hour as processing time, and Ethereum also takes quite a while. Stellar like processes these transactions in 3 to 5 seconds. So every 3 to 5 seconds, the nodes on the network meet and validate a transaction set, and then it goes out. So it's fast. It's really fast. It's also cheap. The fees that they're very, very, very low, many fractions of a cent, really. And as I mentioned before, they're just to deter bad actors from spamming the network. But yeah.
So there's another question: how much power do anchors have, and if fail-safe against malicious anchors? So anchors are usually regulated financial institutions or financial like fintech companies. So what that means is, for example, an anchor in Mexico would have the Mexican fintech license. An anchor in France would have an EMI license, or an anchor in Canada would have an MSP license. So these companies are not like sketchy companies. These are like established companies with legal presence. And yeah, so that's.
So I think we meant, so can we think of XLM kind of as the lingua franca for tradable assets, let it be fiat, parity, or stock, or something else? So I feel like, like I send a link about Lumens therein, but as I mentioned, like XLM can be an intermediary between digital assets on the Stellar DEX, for example. So let's say if it is, but let's say if a Euro token and a USD token weren't working well together, like for example, there's not enough assets on each of the network, or more bids or asks, then they can go via XLM. Makes a great way. That's how path payments work, basically. So like one let's say start, you have USD, and then another one has Euro, and let's say they're not compatible, but then path payments allows it to take the best path, like even if it's via Bitcoin, if it's via XLM, if it's via another currency on the network. So that's and XLM, because it's the native token on the network, has a primary role in this conversion. I hope that that helps. Are there any more questions? Feel free to ask them now. And obviously, like I will send you a let me see if I can just stop sharing. And I can send a link to the Discord if you have any questions. And feel free to ask. Oh, so we do not speak about prediction or prices or even the progress of XLM. We are just here to speak about the network. But yeah, it's a common question, but SDF does not speak about that. Yeah, just so you know. Any other questions?
I was planning to ask something, but it might be technical. I don't know if you know, but
Yeah.
Do you know the size of the blockchain right now? I mean, in terms of gigabytes, I mean, so is it growing really fast, or is it manageable?
So you mean about the number of nodes on the network?
No, since
Or-
it's transaction, we
that
write it
way?
into the blockchain. We are actually, writing some data, so it takes some disk space. So how much disk space if I want to store all of the Stellar transactions? So how big the blockchain is?
Well, they just launched a new Horizon, which makes it easier to run a Horizon node. So like you don't need to run both, like you can run a separate Horizon API. You don't need to run like, let's say like everything, and they just updated all of that. I don't know specifics, but I can definitely send you some information about this. And since they updated like the Horizon infrastructure into Horizon, Horizon is our API server, everything is much smoother and should be also much quicker to get it up to speed. So again, I'm not a developer, but let me see if I can find some information real quick. And obviously after that, yeah, I can, yeah, here is some information about Horizon. So here is some information about Horizon, our API server. And let me see if I can quickly, yeah, so I don't know, Jem, you might, oh yeah, you have, yeah, this is the Stellar consensus.
I also posted a link of the Stellar consensus protocol, which is the underlying protocol of Stellar network. So also like that might be a good way to get more technical knowledge about how it works.
Yeah.
I think there's one question there, but so yeah, I think is there another?
Yeah, you did answer that one, but we can go over it again. So for not sure how to pronounce her name, but for the question that how much power do anchors have? So like what Jem also mentioned, they have their own licenses, and they do, yeah, they are like, they are like legit companies, they're fintech companies, and even banks, can anchor an asset, for example. So they are not to become an anchor. There is.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. How does one become an anchor? So there are multiple ways that you can approach that. One is just get some friends together, look into the documents, and start creating. That's one way. We can always send you documents and like some guidelines on how like we can make your life easier in this anchor journey. You can reach out to Stellar. You can find some forms. I think you can you find contact forms on the website. And also there's lots of documentation, lots of talks on YouTube about how to become an anchor. So there's lots of materials that you can take a look, but you can always contact me through LinkedIn, via LinkedIn, and I can give more specific information about it as well.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah, so like it's important to know that Stellar is the network, and so Stellar Development Foundation is the foundation that like shepherds Stellar, not owns Stellar, no one owns Stellar, but shepherds Stellar and supports the code base and speaking and is a speaking partner to institutions. But an XLM is really the native token, so it's just a token. It's not that it doesn't do anything on its own.
Thanks for your comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Very mission focused, and creating equitable access is like our #1 priority. So every day we work towards financial inclusion. Thank you for that.
Yes. And we don't get there alone. So like we need, like Stellar needs people and businesses and, like developers and even students like you to build on the technology and, build out these payment rails. And Stellar will be just the payment rails for that. And if that's, if Stellar can be, a technology that you can, if you want to build a project and you think Stellar is, it's a very interesting technology to use for this, then, definitely look on stellar.org, complete Stellar Quest. Stellar Quest is just fun to complete. And if you just want to get some more knowledge about how blockchain works in general too, and join our community. Yeah, and Gem and I are always here to answer any questions, or and if you go into I'll send a link of Stellar Global real quick as well, so you can connect in there. And if there are no questions, we can finish.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, there was a question, but I can also answer. The question was, are the methods of encryption available precisely? Actually, there are no encryption here, first of all, but there are cryptographic algorithms involved, mostly the digital signatures. And also you have to use hash functions to shorten most of the messages. But I'm sure that they are mentioned in the white papers of the Stellar webpage, I guess.
Yeah, and to know anything about that, you can, even going through Stellar Quest, you already learn a lot. For example, you can learn about XDR, and you can learn about JSON and all these different formats that have to do with this. And you can play with having a public key and a secret key without actually losing, or risking to lose money, since it's all on a test network. So it's a great way, even if you're not a developer. I still recommend doing that. I just posted a link of Stellar Global into the chat. And so if you have Discord or you want to start Discord is a very nice service where you can chat with people. You can ask all your questions in here as well. And it's run by community members. We don't even run it. It's run by the Stellar community members, and we are in there sometimes to answer any questions you may have. So thank you so much. It was really nice to give this presentation.
Thank you very much for both of you for this wonderful presentation. It was very nice to have you here. I hope when the pandemic ends, we also want to have you physically here in our campus.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I would love that. Yeah, I would love to travel. Until then.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And have a wonderful day.
Have a good day.